Welcome back. So today I am going to provide some price projections for XRP during the next bull run. This is definitely an analysis that utilizes various different data points to come up with a rational, non-hype projection of where prices may land during the next bull cycle. And so I'm going to kind of run through this very structurally. Now, this analysis I think is very unique in the sense that it's utilizing various items that I'm outlaying here, and it's not just solely relying on one main form of criteria in terms of an analysis. It's really a blend of art and science as well. There is some subjectivity interjected into the analysis, and so I also think it's very important that you hang around until the very end of this video because there are a few different reasonability checks I perform on this analysis to further validate it. So let's start off here with all of the items that are serving as a basis for the price projections that I'm coming up with here. The first main item that I'm looking at is the prior bull run price movement and also the fractal. So what I'm referring to is, if I can find my way here, I'm referring to this price movement back here in 2017 into 2018. My second related item is an Elliott wave analysis, and so one of the items, it's really one and two are the same thing. So in our prior bull run, we had a one wave up, a two wave corrective move, a third impulse wave up, a fourth corrective wave, and then a fifth wave up that we topped out at around $3.53 during our prior bull run. By the way, one of the things that I'm not planning on covering here are fundamental discussions surrounding what an Elliott wave is, or fib extensions, or fib retracements. There's plenty of other videos out there pertaining to that, so you can certainly do some homework there. So these are the first two items that I'm considering in the price projections. I'm expecting similar types of movements during this bull run and a similar sort of fractal playing out. The third item I'm using are Fibonacci extensions. I'm also using Fibonacci retracements. I'm heavily relying on price relativity to Bitcoin. Some people, I would say most people, refer to these as Satoshi values. I'm actually going to refer to them in the decimal form. So anytime I'm referring to a price relativity, I'm talking about the XRP BTC chart. And then the last item that I'm considering is just the total cryptocurrency market cap. So let's dig right in here. So my first price projection as it relates to wave one, because remember, as a basis included within items 1 and 2 here, I am anticipating that we will see a similar fractal play out during this bull run, a similar movement. We saw 5 distinct Elliott waves that I showed you just a moment ago, and I think we will get similar movements this time around during the bull cycle. So for wave one, the main item I'm looking at here is the XRP BTC chart, and I'm looking at the fractal that's playing out within that chart, as well as the 0.702 fib retracement level. So let's take a look at what I'm specifically referring to. So if we go to the XRP BTC chart, what we'll see first off, and again, I'm not going to cover the fractal. There's plenty of charts out there on TradingView, as well as perhaps some videos that discuss the fractal that's playing out here. But in short, what's going on is we're seeing this price movement play out here, and most likely it looks like the latest fractal that's playing out within here is the same type of movement we saw in here. So we can expect a similar move up, but to a larger magnitude. And one of the items that I did notice was during our prior wave one movement, the wave one movement during the prior bull cycle was this large move up from around 1/2 cent to call it 7.5 cents. This move up it occurred right here. And if we look at this from a fib retracement level, if we come from the top here to the bottom here, we can see that this move up hit our 0.702 fib retracement level. So I'm saying, okay, well, since we're seeing the same sort of fractal play out in the current chart here, I'm expecting in this bull cycle to see a similar move up in the XRP BTC chart. And so the first price projection I'm coming up with has to do with that specific value. Now I'm being a little bit more conservative. I'm exercising a degree of conservatism here and saying instead of hitting this 0.702 level, I'm saying we'll hit the 0.618 level. So if we come over to the chart here, and again, this is going to vary depending upon where we bottom out in our current price movement. Currently, this level right here is our bottom. We could go as low as around here. So you can see it if you stare up at the 0.702 and 0.618, you can see the values do fluctuate a little bit, not by a lot. But what I am projecting here is that we'll hit around this 0.618 fib level, which is around a 0.000155 value. What that means, as an example here, is that if Bitcoin was priced at $10,000, the wave 1 movement would take us up to $1.55. However, the other thing that I am noting here is the last time that we hit our wave 1 top, Bitcoin was just below its all-time high of 19,666. So if we saw some sort of similarly timed move, we would take that ratio and multiply it by around 19,000, and we get around $3. So really, again, the price is, in my opinion, going to be very dependent upon where Bitcoin is at, and I'm mainly for wave 1 going to be relying on the XRP BTC chart and looking to hit this 0.618 fib retracement level. So it could really be anywhere between $1.55 and $3, and that's why I think it's important to really hone in on that relativity chart. So my conclusion here is that we will top out in wave 1 at this price relativity to Bitcoin. Now looking at wave 2, this is going to be a corrective wave. I am relying on the prior fractal to say that we will correct down to approximately the 0.702 retracement. What do I mean by that? What I mean is if we take the top of this wave and retrace all the way, we take the bottom of this wave, the bottom of our prior fractal movement here during the correction here, if we take the bottom and proceed all the way up to the top, we can see that once we reach the top here, prices came all the way down to this 0.702 fib retracement. And so I'm saying the same sort of thing will play out once we hit our wave 1 top. We'll retrace down to this 0.702 fib retracement. So that is my conclusion for wave 2. For wave 3, and this is a little bit of a restatement, I'm going to include a link at the bottom of the video to my prior video that I created on the fundamental and technical analysis and the rationale behind investing in XRP. Originally, I had my wave 3 target between 7 to 9, but I did revise that. So I'm basing this on really a couple things. The prior cycle, we saw that our wave 3 here hit a ratio, an XRP BTC ratio of 0.243. And it hit that ratio at a time that Bitcoin was 60% above its prior all-time high. And so if we exercise the same sort of logic, which fundamentally I believe that once Bitcoin starts to enter price discovery and it goes above its prior all-time high, we'll just call it 20,000. Once it enters price discovery and blast past 20,000, to me, I am in the camp that it certainly makes sense that we'll see money flow into altcoins. And by this point, if we believe that a similar fractal and price movement will play out in many of the altcoins, then we can expect somewhere around Bitcoin reaching a same high above its prior bull cycle, say 60%, like it did before. We'll see XRP begin to move up into its wave 3 top. So if we assume that, that would mean that Bitcoin at 60% above its prior all-time high would put it at about 31,400. This relativity in that price equates to $7.60. But the big but here is that I fundamentally believe that we will see higher ratios this time around than we saw from the prior bull cycle. And what I'm seeing in the charts and what I'm looking at is expanding. I'm saying expanding cycles. Let me show you what I mean by that. So what I mean is if we flip back here, this is the prior bull cycle for XRP, and we can see the ratio hit all the way up here at nearly 0.0001. During this bull cycle, we went all the way up. And this is actually a fib extension here, and we can see we hit the 2.618 fib extension at 0.000243. I'm saying that we won't hit quite as high as the 2.618 fib extension on the next bull cycle, because that would actually result in a relativity value that would result in XRP's market cap exceeding Bitcoin's, and I don't think that's going to happen this bull cycle. What I could see is hitting this 1.618 extension, and that's around 0.00038. So my conclusion here is that if we assume a higher relativity value and the same price point of 31,400, that would put us at around $12. It also, the other nice thing about this $12 target is it closes in on a 3.618 fib extension on the XRP USD chart. And I believe I also have that drawn out as well. So if we come back here, we'll see this 3.618 fib extension is right here, and it's a little north of $12. So with a higher relativity value, that XRP BTC chart, if we assume XRP hits that wave 3 top at Bitcoin reaching around 60% past its prior 20,000 all-time high, just like what happened in the past bull cycle, then we could expect a $12 price target. So if we come back here, the conclusion is that our wave 3 target will be somewhere in between $7 to $12. Mind you, these are price projections, right? And so it's hard to come up with exact dollar price targets. I think anyone who's suggesting specific price targets is, in some senses, doing themselves a disservice. I think coming up with a range makes a lot more sense, because it's really hard to accurately go out into the future, especially the more time that elapses. It's real hard to go out into the future and pick specific price points. But if you wanted to pick the average of this range, or in other words, the midpoint, you're looking at about $9.50. So I think anything within this range to me makes complete sense. Now, when we get into our fourth wave, this is again another corrective wave, and I'm not going to go back to the chart. I'll just make the same sort of commentary. If we do go back to the prior chart, what we will see for wave 4 in the prior cycle is, once again, we did correct down to that 0.702 fib retracement. So if you take a look at the wave 2 bottom up to the wave 3 top, and you look at the 702 fib retracement level, that's where we corrected within wave 4. So I'm saying, okay, well, I think it's very reasonable if we are assuming we will see a similar fractal play out in this bull cycle, then we'll get a similar type of price movement. So my price projection, my concluding thought on that for a wave 4 corrective target will be a 0.702 fib retracement from this wave 3 top, wherever we land here. And now we get into wave 5. So wave 5 is really interesting because I used 3 different data points to come up with this estimate. So bear with me for a moment. I'm all in favor of keep it stupid simple. And I think for the most part, I think this analysis does do that. But in this case, I am using 3 different data points to arrive to an estimate. So hopefully I explained this really well. The first thing I evaluated was the prior trend-based fib extension. And in short, what I'm saying is I don't think that's realistic. The wave, if we actually take a look at what the fib extension is here, it's a 7.618 fib extension. So let me show you what I mean. So if we go to the past chart here and we come from the bottom up to the top up here and take a look at how far this thing extended up, it reached the 7.618 fib extension. And if we do the same thing accounting for the move up here in a fib extension, it results in a $74 price target. I think that's very unrealistic. That would result in a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, and I think that's too aggressive of a price target for this cycle. And when I say I don't want to consider that fib extension in its entirety for an estimate, and that it accounts for all the noise in here, this is what I mean. The bull cycle back here took place when the market cap of XRP was a lot lower, and I touched on this in my prior video. But when you have a smaller, I like the analogy I heard in another video that from a YouTube subscriber I listened to. It's a smaller boat in a large ocean, right? And so it's easier to move that boat around in the ocean, whereas when you have a larger market cap play like Bitcoin, it's a larger ship in the ocean. And so the volatility of the ocean, it doesn't have as much movement on the ship size of Bitcoin. Same thing here. So when there's smaller dollars and the market cap is smaller in XRP, it's easier to move the price up. So if you looked at a fib extension from this cycle and you just said, well, we're going to see something similar for this next cycle, I think you're discounting, you're not accounting for the fact that there's a lot more noise in here because it's easier to move the price up. So what I said was, look, we're not going to see that big a price movement this cycle because the market cap of XRP is a lot larger. And so I said, well, what about something more realistic like half of that? And again, this is where subjectivity is being interjected here. But if we take, roughly half that price target of 74 and say 37, it puts us at a 3.618 fib extension, which to me makes a lot more sense based on the fib extension and the price level. So my first data point is looking at $37. My second price target is saying, well, our prior cycle top resulted when that relativity, that XRP BTC relativity, was a 0.000179 multiplied by Bitcoin's all-time high during that bull cycle. If we assume the same logic, we could come up with a data point here. And so my perspective here, my opinion, is Bitcoin during this bull cycle will top out somewhere around 250,000. Now, you might look at the 250,000 and say that's too aggressive of a move. I don't think it's going to top out that high, and that's fine. I would say, I would agree with that logic. Maybe it doesn't hit 250,000. Maybe it hits something south of that. I also think, however, there's conservatism being displayed in this estimate. Because if you recall from my earlier comments, I am expecting from the Wave 3 top, I'm expecting the relativity value for XRP to be larger this time around in relation to Bitcoin. And so it would make sense that this multiple, which is being applied to the Bitcoin top, would be higher. But I'm not. I'm keeping it the same. So I think that's a layer of conservatism that's baked into this estimate. However, whether we drop the Bitcoin price and make it 200,000 and then increase the relativity value, I think we're splitting hairs here. So The point of this is this data point, once you do the math here and take this relativity value times the 250,000, you come up with a $45 price target. So that is my second data point. My third data point has to do with the crypto market cap. So during the last bull cycle, when we hit our wave 5 top, the XRP dominance peaked at 18%. So let me just show that to you real quick so that you're following me. Where are we at? So back in, where are we at? In January, you can see this candle right here. If you look up at the top of your screen, you should see it says high of 17.98. So 18%, right? Now, what I'm saying is we peaked out at 18% at wave 5. Our prior crypto market cap peaked at 762 billion. And although they did not peak on the same day, it's still reasonable to assume they peaked on relatively the same time period for purposes of the estimate being used here. I have heard a few analysts come up. Now, I haven't done a thorough analysis in terms of trying to come up with where I think the total crypto market cap will peak at the end of our next bull cycle. But a few analysts that I respect have come up with figures between 7 to 10 trillion, which I think is very reasonable, and I'll show you further why in a reasonability check why I think that is reasonable. So if we believe that to be a reasonable range, that our total crypto market cap will peak at 7 to 10 trillion, and keep in mind the prior market cap, when there were a lot less fundamentals in the space, was close to a trillion. It was 762 billion. So again, 7 to 10 trillion is very reasonable in my opinion. I'm interjecting some subjectivity here and saying I'm not going to pick the midpoint at 8.5. I'm going to round up, be a little more objective. Be a little bit more aggressive and say 9 trillion. So if we assume that the next bull cycle tops, total crypto market cap tops at around 9 trillion, that would imply an XRP price of $37 because we would take our 9 trillion, we would multiply it by 18%, and you'd come up with 1.62 trillion. One other point to make here is, you could argue either way that you believe the XRP dominance will be, I think there's an argument to be made that the dominance will be north or south of 18% when we top out. But again, I think we're splitting hairs here, and I think it's very reasonable to just assume something relatively in line with last time. And so I think the $37 price target is very reasonable based on that. And so what I did for wave 5 is I just averaged out the 3 price targets, and I came up with $40. So my conclusion is that the wave 5 target will top out at 40. So again, as a review, before I go into some reasonability checks to further validate what I've come up with, wave 1, I ultimately see topping at a price that is 0.000155 times the Bitcoin price at that time. Wave 2 will correct down to a 702 fib retracement level. We'll then hit our wave 3 target somewhere between $7 to $12. Just like the wave 2 correction, the wave 4 correction will result in a Fibonacci retracement of 0.702. And then we're going to explode higher and ultimately wick. And again, I should point this out. These tops are wicks of candles. We will wick up all the way to near $40 in wave 5. So let's look at some reasonability checks that I have here, and let's focus on the first one. So the first question I asked myself was, do any of the XRP valuations that I've derived result in the XRP market cap exceeding Bitcoin? No. I am not looking at things in a silo environment. I'm not full of hopium. Bitcoin is still the driver in this market. Could that change 10 years from now? Absolutely, but it's not changing this bull cycle. And so I think it's very logical to conclude and come up with price projections and exit strategies based on valuations that do not result in the market cap exceeding Bitcoin. The second question, do projected price multiples meet or exceed the prior bull cycle? No, they do not. And again, I think that's another good reasonability check to do for reasons that I described earlier. The market cap this time around is larger, and so based on that fact, we should expect price movements that are not as outrageous as our prior bull cycle. We're still going to get some really large price movements based on what I'm showing here, but they're just not going to be as large as last time. The third reasonability check, does the market cap of our Wave 5 make sense? Because I will say, looking at the current price of 20 cents, that is a 200x move up from where we're at right now. So does that make sense? That gives us a market cap of roughly 1.7 trillion, and I absolutely think that makes sense, but that's contingent on the total market cap that I'm pointing out here. So long as the total market cap is several trillion dollars by that point at the top of the next bull cycle, which I believe it will be, then it is very reasonable. Then my last question that I asked here is, does a $7 to $10 trillion crypto market cap even make any sense? And it absolutely does. So I am in the camp that believes that the Bitcoin dominance, let's just take a step back and look at the Bitcoin dominance. The Bitcoin dominance is topping out at a lower level this cycle than it did here. Okay, in the prior cycle, we were all the way up at higher, 98%, 99%. And in this cycle, it looks like we've topped out at 73%. Maybe we'll spike up to 79 or 74 here percent. But the whole point is the dominance within Bitcoin is diminishing, and I expect that to be a trend moving forward. So, looking at what I'm outlaying here, again, if we assume Bitcoin will hit around $250,000 at the very top of its next cycle, that puts its market cap at around 4.6 trillion. Now, last cycle, the Bitcoin dominance topped out at 69%. And again, my fundamental belief that I outlay here is that we're losing dominance over time. So we should, at the top of the next cycle, we should see something smaller. So if we assume that the market tops out at 9 trillion, like I'm suggesting, that would imply that Bitcoin's dominance will top out at 51%, which is still more than half the market, but it's less than our 69%, which I think is very reasonable. And here's the math, the 4.6 divided by the 9, which gives us 51%. So I also think this is a very reasonable point to be made. And so with that, that's all I had. I hope that you found this useful. Again, these are all price projections that I've derived. Certainly prefer the word projections over predictions. These are price projections that I derived using various data points. And I hope that you found this helpful, and nice to run into a video that doesn't have hype but has logic, eh? Thanks for your time.